Gladiator 2, the movie that had big shoes to fill but was 18 sizes too small.
Are you not entertained?
The movie that betrayed masculinity. The movie that forgot to hire a history department. And so on. And you've heard this, and I bet you believe this. Well, don't worry, because I did too. Until I actually recently watched the movie myself. And I think all these thoughts are wrong. And I'm a huge history buff. And like I promised in the title, in the next 3 minutes, I'm going to prove to you why Gladiator 2 is actually a great movie, unlike many of the critics say. But before we actually get to the good parts about Gladiator 2, we have to understand what made us hate it in the first place, because they made some critical errors. And there are two major aspects that they messed up in. And the first is the trailers. When we all watched the trailers, we were put off by the scenes they showed us. Either it looked like they were pushing an ideology, or they were just copy and pasting Gladiator 1. But the biggest problem was their whole messaging that Rome must fall. This is the message that we received all throughout the trailers, which was contrary to the message of the entire first movie, where it was save Rome. Now, if you've watched Gladiator 2, you know that Gladiator 2 is not about Rome must fall. While there are people who are trying to do that, ultimately the main character is trying to save Rome. But the trailer puts us off nevertheless. But then another pivotal area that they screwed up Gladiator 2 was the first 10 minutes. If you're a history buff or a guy, you probably watched the whole first 10 minutes and were just absolutely confused and hated it, which I was in the same boat. So that was an adventure that none of us wanted to go on. But they took us on it anyway. And it kind of screwed over our opinion of the rest of the movie, because I noticed with myself, I was watching the movie and noticing every single other error when it came to pushing some sort of an ideology or when it came to historical errors, because that first 10 minutes set me up so poorly. We were confused and we hated that whole first 10 minutes for bazillions of history reasons. Go watch some history review of Gladiator 2. They'll discuss all of that stuff. The majority of the movie will be discussing the first 10 minutes of the movie, because of what the heck is happening in the siege. They tried to build some sort of a connection with the main character's wife, and we didn't care for that at all. Same thing with the whole city, which was confusing of itself. The siege was completely inaccurate. That was a mess. And putting that aside, they actually didn't do a terrible job with historical accuracy. I'm actually going to give them an 8 out of 10 for a Hollywood movie when it comes to historical accuracy, if the first 10 minutes is excluded, of course. Of course, they took some liberties, but that always happens. I'm not surprised. And a good movie does need to take some liberties, so I'm willing to let some things go. Come on, guys, look at these guards. They look so dope. You can't disagree with this. They look amazing. I don't care if they're historical accurate or not, even though they're not that bad. They just look amazing. But after that, I noticed something. The movie was actually pretty good other than that first 10 minutes. Because while some people do think that the movie betrayed masculinity, and that first 10 minutes is really where you see that, it actually did a great job throughout the rest of the movie. We get to see this main character lost, holding on to hatred, and that's all he has left. He's in this foreign world with very little hope. But to make it worse, he's entered into Rome, which at this time is a broken place full of problems. But it is in the midst of this that he realizes his hate is actually what's holding him back, and that he needs to become a better man and step up for what is right to actually help save Rome. And that is his goal, not destroy Rome like he initially thought, but to save the good that is in Rome, because there is still good there, despite it might looking hopeless. And so in the end, he risks his life to fight for this new world, his home. And in the end, that's a great representation of man, because how many of us feel so lost at times in a broken world, having no idea what to do? And this is a great example of that. But yet he chooses to continue to fight and believe that there is still good and that he needs to be a stronger man for that purpose. That is why Gladiator 2 was actually a great movie, and one I am going to be watching again, because it was just that good. And there are some very valuable lessons we can take away from this movie as men. And that is it, gentlemen. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more content like this, please subscribe, because, gentlemen, it is time for another crusade.